Wahiga, we're right at one of the busiest intersections of Kampala town, and as you can see, business goes on as usual this morning. It's hard to imagine that this is one of the streets that was on shutdown just 2 days ago on Monday when protests continued all over this city. But one thing that Ugandans do say, and one thing that Kampala residents do say, is that it's a very unpredictable situation at the moment, that anything can happen. We've noticed patrols by Uganda police and also by UPDF around town in anticipation of today's event, which is a special prayers to be held at one of the main cathedrals in Kampala in honor of MP Robert Chagulanyi, or as many would know him, Bobi Wine, who's been detained by the military here in Uganda.
Asha, just a quick one as well back to you. Tell us about the reaction by journalists to the apology that was given yesterday by the military. Have they accepted that apology?
Well, we've noticed that most of the local press had that as their top story last night, and it's also the splash story in some of the newspapers, local newspapers here in Uganda. And the journalist reaction actually has been to condemn the attack against journalists on Monday. But many of them are saying that there is a deliberate attempt by government here to silence journalists who are covering the current events, the current political events. And you can see that government and UPDF is trying to control the narrative here in Uganda, trying to control what goes out, and very likely we're likely to see some of those scenes even today during the Requiem Mass, but most importantly tomorrow when Bobi Wine is expected to be court-martialed either in Kampala or in Gulu.
A little bit, Asha, about that court-martialing process. Legally, what are the possible scenarios from tomorrow?
Well, there's only one scenario. We did speak to UPDF spokesperson yesterday, and that's Brigadier Richard Karemire, who told us that Bobi Wine is facing charges of possession of illegal firearms. But one of the other charge sheets that we've been able to see, Bobi Wine alongside 34 others are charged with treason. And that's actually the big question today, that will Bobi Wine be accused of treason in that court-martial? What UPDF is saying is that this is going to be a military process in accordance to the UPDF Act. But Bobi Wine's lawyers say that it is unfair and it is illegal, and they're going to do whatever they can to ensure that Bobi Wine goes through a civil process and goes into a civilian court. But I want you to listen to what Richard Karemire, as well as Bobi Wine's main legal representative, said when we spoke to them exclusively yesterday.
We have laws. Go to the countries as I know them have laws, and the laws applied in this respect, in respect to the trial of Honorable Chagulanyi, they exist under statute books. So before they are amended or expunged, they will definitely be applied. If you look at Section 119 of the UPDF Act 2005, it clearly spells out that if you are in possession of arms or ammunition that are ordinarily a preserve of the defense forces, then you can become subject, you can be tried by the General Court-Martial.
Our options can only lie with the civil courts, because the General Court-Martial is a highly compromised, not compromised, but it's a highly guarded process. It is Museveni's tribunal. He directs them, he tells them what to do. This is a political case against a political opponent, and you expect justice from that court. It is not independent by whatever stretch of imagination or the English language. It is not even required to be independent by law.
So Wahiga, as you've heard there, that's Medad Segona, who is Bobi Wine's main legal representative. He's also a member of parliament. And the many analysts here are saying that because Bobi Wine is a civilian and because he's being taken through a court-martial process, that this signals just how seriously President Yoweri Museveni is taking this young politician, that Yoweri Museveni is unlikely to bring out his military prowess and to bring out his military powers against the political opponent if he doesn't deem him to be a worthy opponent or a dangerous one for his presidency. Wahiga.
Thank you so much, Asha Mwilu. Great coverage there, and please stay safe even as you endeavor to keep our viewers on top of that particular story. Asha Mwilu there, our senior features editor. reporting live from Kampala, Uganda. And to just get some brief perspective, joining me in studio right now, let me start from my far right there. We have Amanya Cohen, who's a lawyer by profession, but also a Uganda national. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And right here next to me, we have Grace Obalim, a psychologist by profession, but also a Uganda national. Welcome to the program as well.
Thank you.
Let me give each of you briefly a minute to respond to what Asha Mwilu has had to say this morning. Does it resonate with the sort of messages you are getting from back home? Amanya, let me start with you.
You know, the perspective of the country, to me, you will realize that Uganda has a history. And the history, it's a political history. So for us to be able to understand the situation on the ground, we should be able also to assess the political history of Uganda. That's number one. And secondly, also, on the issues surrounding Bobi Wine's detention, arrest, and what, we should not forget that Uganda has laws that, of course, look into such issues. So as we discuss such, can we say clearly 100% that the laws are not working? Because at the end of the day, once you are arrested, you should be tried. Whether Bobi Wine should be tried in the court-martial or should be tried in the civilian court, that is a due process. It's a process on its own. But the question is, are the human rights violated or they are respected in the circumstances of arrest? That should be the bone of our discussion.
These are the discussions that we should be having. And we need to let our viewers know that we had tried to reach out to the Ugandan ambassador to Kenya for the last 4 days to invite her to come for this particular interview, but we have not been able to reach her. Grace, let me come to you. We know that Canada, USA, UK have issued travel advisories against Uganda.
Yes.
In your view, as you look at everything that's happening, are they justified?
It's sad that my fellow citizens have to go through such, because it's very clear. One doesn't have to subscribe to a political party or doesn't have to be a Ugandan to clearly condemn what is going on in Uganda. It's clearly not correct. Human rights are being violated. The whole arrest and detention of all the suspects, I don't want to zero it down just to Bobi Wine, but all the suspects, the 33 to 34 people that were arrested, picked up last Monday, it's just also wrong. It's not only that human rights have been abused, but people are being dehumaned. They're being treated like they're not human beings. I have a question. The presidential convoy went ahead towards the riot.
You're referring to the incident that has led us to where we are right now?
Yes, that has led us to where we are right now. I expect that the SFG and the FSC and the other security officers should have learned in advance that there was
a riot ahead.
And they would have diverted the president's convoy. But they still went ahead. And they got mixed up into the riot. Now, before we go there, I want us to briefly, like my brother said, look at the history of Uganda. I want to take us back. How did Bobi Wine become elected as the MP of Uganda? It was through a by-election. A by-election where the court ruled that the place was vacant. He went into his election, was peaceful. He campaigned throughout and won peacefully. After that, let's look at how did Arua end up being into by-election. It was after assassination of the MP Abiriga. And has not been the first assassination that has gone on in Uganda for top people. Now, after the MP being assassinated, the place had to be declared vacant. An election, a by-election came in. Before even the government started saying that maybe Bobi Wine or other MPs or other leaders organized riot, the eve to Abiriga's burial, what took place in Arua? There was massive violence.
So there have been a sort of a series of events leading us to where Uganda finds itself today. Hang on there, let me come back to Amanya. Can Bobi Wine, and I know this is a difficult question for you to answer, can you expect a fair trial tomorrow if you can look at one, history, and secondly, the independence of the judiciary in Uganda?
First of all, let's first look at how Bobi Wine ended up there. Remember, we are having two sides of the story. You know, for you, because under the penal code, once you attack the motorcade of the president or any of the president, it's that one, I think, under the same penal code. Either it amounts to treason, and you can be even killed because of that. That is the law that we have.
If it is proven.
Yes, if it is proven.
Yes.
Now, issues of proving of whether, and let me just say this, that we have been shown many photos on social media. Some might be right, some might be wrong. So where do we lie the yardstick? Where do we put the yardstick between the two? It is via passing the due process. Now, let's look at, Uganda has a constitution, but again, when you look at the court he's in, the court martial, in the perception, you know, there are two types of courts. There's what we call a public opinion court. In the eyes of the public opinion court, there is a presumption that Bobi Wine cannot get justice. But we have seen many go there, get justice. There are some who have got justice.
That's your personal...
Yes.
Okay, you don't have numbers to show this versus this.
No, let me just show you when Kizza Besigye, they tried him there. You remember what transpired on the treason? When Tumukunde was tried there. But again, due to the circumstances and how this issue has come up, because when you look at Bobi Wine right now, how do we term? Is he an opposition leader? Is he a threat? And let me just say this. I'm not supporting human rights violation. Also, I don't support how people are taking this Bobi Wine issue. Because at the end of the day, we need to see, Bobi Wine might be not a problem, but his agents are the problem.
That's your assessment?
Yes. And secondly, also, in the Constitution, there is protection of lives and property. So when you're protecting lives and property, where do you put the yardstick? Where people are being killed? Look at what happened in Arua.
Okay, and I am getting your point. Grace, let me come back to you. One of the big discussions now that has then come up in all this is the length of time in which President Yoweri Museveni has been president. There was the issue of the presidential age term limit that was upheld by a constitutional court, should have been a couple of months ago. Has that incident been linked in any way to this? Could some of the protests we're seeing now be sort of a frustration with those who felt that the president should not have been allowed to sort of, or his party should not have been allowed to push for the change of the constitution?
I would like to say this, that during the presidential age limit debate, everybody saw what happened in Parliament. How the parliamentarians were attacked, the violence that took place in the entire discussion. However, our MPs have got the right to debate and pass laws. Okay? In consultation with the people who elected them. And in this case, unfortunately, I was here in Kenya at school. I wasn't back at home. But they said they did consultation. And the voice of the people spoke. However, I don't want to say that Muze, who is my president, is the only man who can lead the country. I was born when he was the president. I am about to get married and give birth to my kid as he's a president. So what are we trying to say? If I look back at home, the youth are the majority. Why can't he mentor?
Someone?
Yes.
That's your personal, that's your message to the president?
Yes. Leadership, good leadership comes with mentorship.
When was the last time he spoke about retirement or transition in leadership?
I don't remember that.
Okay.
To be honest, personally, I don't remember that, and I don't think I have had it of late. If he had taken time, he has so many able youth around him, so many. He praised them all the time. If he has taken time to mentor them, right now we would not be having this fear of the transition that we are trying to see in Uganda. Nobody knows what lies ahead. It's just about him.
Okay, let me get final thoughts from you. Amanya, I can give you a chance to respond. Because obviously the big issue is transition.
Yes.
One side feel the system is good so far, let it continue, but another side feel, and I hear especially that a big percentage of the population in Uganda are under or around 25 years old. They were not aware of what happened before Museveni, and they possibly could identify more with Bobi Wine. Amanya, let me get your final thoughts.
You know, my final thoughts about the transition. Issues of transition is key and critical in Uganda. As I say this, there are many, as to why we are having a Bobi Wine issue right now.
Okay.
Is on one, what the president ought to do is to deal with unemployment.
Okay.
There is what we call people in the ghetto. Yes? Those people, they look like their future. They don't have a future.
Okay.
So the president ought to deal with that. And in fact, last week I think he mentioned it, that he will be dealing with it. And secondly, if we are to consider about the issues of transition, could we say that then Bobi Wine is seemed to replace Dr. Besigye, who has been also there? So the president, as I may say, she's
laughed a little bit as you said that. I don't know why.
Besigye, you see, Besigye and Bobi Wine, they're in the opposition. And if we are to agree that Museveni has ruled the country, when it comes to voting pattern, why do people vote him in? Why do we have a big number of members of parliament in the parliament. How should people deal with situations where there is lack of democracy and the rule of law? Because the courts, there is a perception that the courts are compromised.
Side with one side. Okay.
So to us, and this is what my last message. Let us not look at what is on the social media.
Okay.
Social media can lie.
Okay.
So when we look at what is on the social media and the history of Uganda, and you remember even in terms of social media.
You have made your last point a bit longer. So be careful with what you see on social media, and we need to let our viewers know that over the last 24 hours we've seen some messages in Kampala and Uganda circulating about the possibility of violence and sort of very heavy military action, which the army has come out to say is not true. Let me also give you your final point, Tafadhali. Go ahead.
Okay. I want to start from what he said, that let's not rely on social media. I agree with him. But in this instance, people are frustrated. People are desperate. The suspects were picked up 2 days without communication. By the time communication of their whereabouts started coming up, people had gone online to talk. So how can we avoid such social media news? Let the rightful people come and communicate at the right time. You know, there's a saying that goes that process is as important as impact.
Okay.
So if the process that you're using to handle things is not right, the impact will definitely not be right. So in this case, what are we trying to say? What we are trying to say that, yes, maybe the 33 suspects could have done something wrong. But the manner in which they're being handled, the way in which this whole process has been managed is just not right. I was speaking to a friend yesterday, a lawyer friend in Uganda.
I'll take this
he
as
told
the
me,
last point. Go ahead.
Yes, he told me that in the martial court, if you're found guilty of being in possession of firearms, the worst sentence, the worst ruling that can happen is life imprisonment. Now, vis-a-vis the Ugandan constitution, it will be 7 years. This is a young man. Bobi Wine is about 35 years old, if I'm to now refer to him directly. He has a young family. Okay, so as human rights advocates, everybody in the whole world, what they're saying is, maybe he has done something wrong, but give him a fair trial.
Okay.
Don't abuse human rights. The Ugandan Constitution, Article 24 says that no citizen will be subjected to inhuman treatment or to torture, and that's what is being done.
Good, thank you. I'll take that as your last point, and your message out there has been heard. Same to you. That's been, from my far right there, Amanya Cohen, who's a lawyer and a Uganda national, and right here next to me, Grace Obalim, a psychologist, but also a Uganda national as well. Obviously, a very emotional sort of time, especially for you who's not in the country, as you're listening and trying to comprehend what is happening out there. But we at Citizen will endeavor to give you updates as Asha Mwilu stays on top of what